What about X? How do you feel about X?
Listen, I love that Elon bought it. I think that what Elon has done in opening up the spigots on free speech has been absolutely tremendous. Do they need a better way of handling blue check marks? Yes. Do they need a way to do they need a way to cleanse your timeline of sort of random junk? Absolutely. Does the algorithm of X tend to push toward emotional extremes? I think probably. I don't think that's pure X. I think that's true for virtually all of these platforms because higher engagement just means you're more emotionally engaged, and that's where the emotivism comes in. But what he's done in terms of opening up the Overton window, allowing for conversations, allowing for the coverage of news stories that never would have been allowed before is great. Community Notes is an amazing feature. It's amazing. Like Community Notes is a genius thing that he's put in place. And I also, frankly, I kind of love that Elon is kind of freewheeling it. I kind of love that. I think that I think it's more honest. I think that's
the richest thing to do, bro. Like he's just Bruce Wayne at a so different level. Like,
not just that, not just because he's like letting it all hang out, but also because it's actually a more honest way to do the Overton window. So when you're doing the Overton window, right? We talked about this with regard to our publication, but it's also true for a platform. So very often what you'll get from a lot of these publishers or a lot of these platforms is, we have a safety standard. It's very broadly worded, and then the algorithm handles it. It's like, that's bullshit. That's not true at all. Like, it's not an algorithm. There's some 21-year-old intern who's decided they don't like a video, and they click the box, and now that video is banned or demonetized. And we all know that's happening.
Which is crazy, dude.
And so you're hiding behind the algorithm. The algorithm is like your all-purpose excuse for what's actually probably happening in the sausage-making process. And Elon is just like making the sausage in plain sight. He's like, okay, so somebody like...
That's the most gangster thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, I mean, he's like, okay, so somebody's complaining that Alex Jones is not on the platform. Well, maybe I'll think about it. All right, fine, maybe Alex Jones should be on the platform. Right? And then he'll be like, okay, well, yeah, I think Nick Fuentes is a schmuck. I don't like anything he's saying, but also I am pretty committed to free speech, so maybe Fuentes should be here. Right? Like, and then sometimes he'll be like, yeah, that guy's too much of an asshole. He needs to go. Like, you know what? I respect that because at least you're owning the thing. At least you're owning the thing.
He's very honest.
Well, again, in the same way, I'm not in the same category as Elon wealth-wise. One day I'll invent a space company, or a car company. But I mean, again, when you get back to what we were talking about via our public, like, we're pretty honest. There's certain things that we think violate our standards. You're gone. If you don't like it, that's your judgment. You're allowed to make that judgment. For him, he's doing the same thing, and I kind of like it.
You're bringing the foundation that you brought to your home here. I'm not here to teach my kids what their opinions are. I'm teaching them my opinions. And so you're bringing that to the Daily Wire. And you also like the fact that Elon is doing that with X.
Yeah, and I think that he's also being careful because he's not in quite the same position we are where it's like, I'm only doing my opinion. He's like, here is the very, very broad panoply of things I think are appropriate. And it's really broad now, like super broad, including things that I think most people find kind of egregious morally. But he's like, you know what?
Could you name me one?
Sure. I mean, like, I think that there's an awful lot of Nazi content on X, like actual like pro-Hitler content on X. Do I think that should be banned from X? Probably not. I think that I think it's up to people to look at that and say that's trash. I don't want to be associating with that, or I don't like it. But
where do you think we should draw the line?
I think where he's drawn it is pretty good. I mean, he said like child pornography, incitement to violence, like actual criminal activity. I think that's the direction that Elon has moved, and that's a ballsy standard because it means that he's running up against advertisers all the time.
Yeah,
right?
But that's the coolest part about being Bruce Wayne. You don't need their money. Like him and Trump, their superpowers are, I don't need your money.
Right, but I also Elon wants that to be a successful business. And so he's coming up with creative ways to monetize on the platform and to come up with new solutions for advertisers. I mean, I admire the hell out of what he's doing. I mean, he came and he slashed 80% of the staff. I mean, it was like him and 5 guys. Oh. And somehow the staff, the site continued to run on kind of, spit and glue. And it was, and now he's building back out some of the teams that he needs. It's an impressive thing. It's a very impressive thing what he's doing.
You got to sit down with him and talk to him.
Mm-hmm.
How was that interview? Like, did you like it?
Oh, that's fun. I mean,
were you as nervous as now?
So much less. I mean, I was also on the other side, so it's easier to be the interviewer than the interviewee. Elon is such an interesting cat. He's really, really fascinating. I think that Elon, the way he analyzes things, it's like an alien has arrived and is now trying to discern what exactly is going on.
Yeah.
And so he's always going to first principles, always, right? Whenever in every conversation, he's like, I want to break this down to like the very first principles. He analyzes responses of human beings almost as like a scientist would, like breaking it down in a lab. And it's really fascinating. I think that the sort of he's not personable, he's prickly. I'm sure that's true for some people. I've never had that personal experience with him, but I think it's a little overstated. Again, I've never been his employee, which may be a different story. But yeah,
I have this weird. I've never met him, and God willing, I'll have the opportunity to sit with him and have a conversation. From my perspective, from what I see through the lens of like social media or him in interviews, I see a really intelligent child, who's a childlike in his heart, where he's like he wants the best in everybody. But he's been hurt by so much stuff.
So I think that part's true. I mean, when you say that there's like a core innocence to him in his approach to the world, I think that's 100% true.
For him to be so successful and so rich and so generous with like what he's doing, I find it to be very like honorable. Like I think that, I don't know what his relationship with God is, but I feel like he acts more like somebody who fears God than somebody who doesn't.
I mean, he's said that he's sort of open to God before, and I think that that's probably right on a conceptual level. I also think that, again, it takes a certain level of childlike wonder to be audacious enough to just be like, you know what, I'm starting a space company. Like, I mean,
after one thing, PayPal too. How wild is that?
one thing that he said, and he likes cool stuff. Like he approaches the world as a person who's excited about the world, which is a very cool quality. Like it's a super cool quality. The sort of
I hope he never gets rid of that.
Yeah, no, the sort of blasé approach that I think so many people take to business or to life is this kind of cynical world weariness. It's boring as hell, and he's precisely the opposite. So I was sitting with him and I said, my son, my 8-year-old, is like a massive Elon Musk fan, right? He loves cars and he loves space and he loves SpaceX, and I show him all the launches. Like he's super into it. Yeah. And so I was talking to him. I was like, my son. This is right before the Cybertruck came out. I was like, the Cybertruck. My son loves the design. He thinks it's so cool. He's like, right, because I designed it. So 6-year-olds would find it cool. I was like. That seems like a pretty good way of doing cool shit.
Do you see
like really like what a 6-year-old thinks is cool is also what most of us think is really really cool, right? I mean, like it's and most of the stuff
that's such a fun. I can see him crisscross applesauce just playing with the toy versions of it, and he goes, "I like this. Build this."
He literally did that with one of the SpaceX rockets. Apparently, the top of the rocket was too round, and then he watched The Dictator, the Sacha Baron Cohen movie, where there's a whole conversation about how the missile is not cool looking enough and scary looking enough. It's not pointy enough. So he actually went back to his engineers, and he's like, "It makes no difference in terms of the flight path, but can you make it pointier looking so that it's cooler?"
No way.
Yeah, he does that kind of stuff all the time.
A lot of there was some talk on the internet.
It's awesome. It's super cool.
There's talks on the internet that his new robots were like shaped up like the iRobot movie. Did you see this?
Yeah, of course. And this is the thing is that
you know that we watched that and we were like, oh damn, dude, that's gonna be crazy. He watched that, I was like, I'm making that.
Yeah.
What, dude?
So my son sort of has the same quality of like, this is a cool thing. I just want to do it, and that's such an amazing quality in a human being. I mean, frankly, it's. I think it's good on a moral level, but I think that on a business level, it's amazing. I mean, to just be like, you know what? I've always thought space was cool. I'm starting a space company. What the fuck? I mean, that and then make it the most successful space company on the planet. It's like an amazing thing. And it's just, why can't we be excited? This is one of the things that drives me crazy. Like, forget his politics. Can't we just be excited by cool shit? Like, is it okay to be excited that he took the world's, a 20-story rocket, he flew it in the air, the top of it came off, and then he landed it back down on a tower using giant steel chopsticks to catch it? Isn't that, like, amazing? That's so cool. Yeah. That's awesome. Like, can we just be like freaked out about that a little bit?
I love this side of you.
It's so. I
never got to see this side of you. I love it. What makes you as excited as that? Like, do you ever? Is there something aside of you that nobody sees?
I mean, so there's a lot of that kind of stuff. So I mean, when great movies, great music. I mean, obviously there's the easy stuff like my kids, but when it comes to like just cool shit. Tech like that is amazing. In the scientific developments, honestly, the world's a really exciting place. There's so much cool stuff. It's just people are like, have you ever been asked the question, like, how long would you want to live? And you're like, okay, in perfect health, or like I'm old and broken down? In perfect health, how long would you want to live? And my answer to that has always been like, as long as humanly possible, because the world is amazing. Like, God created this amazing world filled with intelligent beings who are capable of creating the coolest shit. I mean, like, think about the fact, to understand how amazing private property and free markets are, understand everything that Elon Musk is currently doing is made with materials that were there when the cavemen were there. Right? Like, all the shit that runs your phone is the sand that everybody walked over for thousands of years. Okay, and human beings took that same sand and then turned that into microchips that are capable of charting the stars. Like that's unreal, and that's so cool. And so, like, what's the next thing that we're going to invent? What's the next thing we're going to do if we're left free, and if we get to keep the stuff we make and keep the profits of what we make, and then reinvest that sort of stuff and do all that sort of stuff? Like that's so cool. I have a sort of quiz question. This is a fun quiz to tell whether people are dumb or smart. Here's a dumb or smart person quiz.
Damn it.
So
We were doing so good.
So it's more of a moral question, actually. Is like, would you prefer to be the dumbest person in a very, very smart society, or the smartest person in a very dumb society?
Oh, the first one.
Yeah.
Right. And so anybody who has like any seichel, any common sense would say the first one. Seichel is a Hebrew word, right? Because
Jesus Christ.
if you're the dumbest person in a smart society, you get the coolest stuff.
Yeah,
Like,
like,
it's like amazing. You get amazingly cool stuff all the time. But there's so many people who I think want to be the smartest person in a really shitty society, because then they get power.
Yeah.
And that's a I think there are a lot of people in politics like that. They'd rather just tear down all the things in order to be the powerful person who gets to run the show.
Yeah.
I have no interest in running a show where you're playing in the mud. I would much rather be low man on the totem pole in a super awesome society.